Excited to introduce my next guest here on the Rich Eisen Show, a guy who drafted me. What is it now? 18 years ago? Wait, 2005. We're in 2023. So 18 plus seasons ago, I got the phone call from the then Oakland Raiders, but the general manager at the time was one Mike Lombardi. You can follow him on Twitter at @MLombardiNFL. And Mike, what do you remember about that 2005 draft, the third round, where you made a young kid from Oakland the happiest kid alive? Any stories that you could share?
Well, we coached you in the Senior Bowl, if you remember correctly.
I do. Yes, I remember that.
We kind of got to know you and felt very comfortable. Rob, Ryan, Don Martindale both liked you a lot. I think there was one young man named Jordan Beck who had a great 40 time down at San Luis Obispo that was getting a lot of love in the draft room because, remember, we are the Raiders' size and speed. And we were able to convince Mr. Davis to make the pick, which wasn't always easy. And we picked you. And then 2 picks later, Jordan Beck went. And then Pat Jones, the former head coach at Oklahoma State, was our tight end coach at the time. He naturally had to remind him that Beck went, and then I just took a beating from Mr. Davis after that. So, yeah, that's the one memory of the 05 draft that will never go away from me. I took a beating.
Okay, was it that one or taking Fabian Washington ahead of Aaron Rodgers?
Well, we made a lot of those mistakes in Oakland. We misevaluated our quarterbacks. We constantly did that. And, we spent a lot of time with Aaron Rodgers. And, we knew that, we Jeff Tedford, all that stuff. But, what happens is when you're in this desperation mode and you kind of see it, you kind of get the sense that you don't want to take a quarterback. You want to use the assets on something else. But we had Randy Moss. We had a veteran team.
Yeah.
And I think that was the die that was cast. And I think a lot of teams misevaluate their quarterbacks. It's one of my biggest regrets in my career in the NFL is how many times we thought we were good at quarterback. I'll give you another one. We're sitting there at the number 2 pick overall in the draft, and we take Gallery, who was supposed to be the cleanest player in the draft, and we don't take Rivers and we don't take Roethlisberger.
Come on, Mike, you're hurting my heart here, buddy. I see how difficult it is to be a general manager.
Remember, because Rich Gannon was coming off of an MVP season.
Yeah.
And I think this is going on a little bit right now too in the league. Like, I mean, we had you on my show the other day, and you know how I feel about all these quarterbacks with the exception of Bryce Young.
Right.
I think we've overinflated them, and I think that for 4 guys in this draft to go in the top 10, I mean, it wasn't 6 months ago where everyone said, Anthony Richardson should go back to school. Now he's going to be a top 10 pick.
So when you overinflate, are you saying that teams are hyping these guys up because people want the young quarterback? Or for me, I always look at it like this, Mike. In a salary cap world that we live in the NFL, getting the young quarterback gets you at least the fixed market rate of a rookie contract where you can control how much he makes and lets you reset your budget on how to build a team. Is it more about trying to get that piece, or is it really that we just need to get a quarterback?
I mean, I think I hear that all the time. It's, you build a team around a rookie contract. But what happens if the rookie contract if the player isn't any good?
Right.
It's like the whole 76ers, the process. Well, if you make bad picks, if you pick Michael Carter-Williams, if you pick Jabril Okafor, if you sign Tobias Harris and Al Horford as opposed to signing Jimmy Butler, I mean, it all comes down to decisions. It all comes down to the evaluation. Look, it's easy if Mahomes is your quarterback on a rookie contract. You're great. But what happens if you've got Malik Willis on a rookie contract? Are you great? I think we've made too much about it. I mean, look, Desmond Ritter is going to be in Atlanta. They don't want Lamar Jackson. Okay, great. That's fine. They don't want to pay the money but are they sure he's a good player?
Yeah, it's the difficulty of being an executive in the National Football League and those decisions that you make. Joined now by Mike Lombardi, the former NFL general manager, host of the GM Shuffle podcast. And Mike, help me out here because you've been in these meetings, you've been here before. When it comes to all of this noise that we hear, where this team is thinking about doing this team is doing this, and you have all these smoke and mirrors. As a general manager, do you block that out? Do you add to the smoke? Like, where does all the smoke truly come from when we get so close to the draft where we're trying to figure out what is the team thinking? Where do these reports come from?
Comes from mostly from the agents trying to put a spin on it, helping their clients. That's what they're paid to do. So I think you have to ignore the noise, and we're seeing it on VSiN in the betting market. That's a big thing. We see today Will Anderson has become the betting favorite to be the second pick overall in the draft. Is that true? I don't know. But that's what the betting market seems to indicate. And the one thing we do know about the betting market is they're fairly in tune. So, a lot of this is noise. And you as a general manager got to ignore the noise, and you've got to be able to stay focused on the task at hand.
Is there ever a time during the draft where you possibly, or just a general manager, executive, at some point gets anxious because there's a run on defensive end, or, man, if we don't get our quarterback, is it Morgan? Like, how do you keep control, keep focus, and stay to the board where you're seeing that the possible picks you wanted are starting to come off the board?
I mean, I think you kind of know it, right? So you're Jacksonville. You lost Taylor in free agency. You got Cam Robinson who gets suspended. So, you're sitting down there in the 20s, and if the tackles go early, you may have to jump to get a tackle. Or maybe you like a tackle where you're picking. A lot of it is based on your board. But this, when it runs out, it runs out. Like, you're not getting – so the object of the draft is to get starters and potential starters, right? And
correct.
That's the first, second, and the third round, right? The fourth round is more about we're going to get a developmental player, maybe a guy down the road. That's for next year's team. So – it's hard to find a starting left tackle in the fourth round.
When it comes to the Seattle Seahawks, Mike, pick number 5, and they've got more picks than that. They got 5 in the first, or 5 in the top 83. What do the Seahawks do? They pick 5. They have another pick coming up at 20. What do you think the Seahawks do with that pick, with the deal for Geno Smith that is essentially a one-year deal? Do they go for a quarterback for the future, or do they just keep adding to the roster, which they did a good job of doing in last year's draft?
Well, I mean, I think they got to look at it both ways, right? Pete went to every single quarterback workout, so obviously he's interested in evaluating them. And if they like one, I'm sure they're going to pull the trigger on it. John Schneider has always been a guy who likes to trade down. I think he's made 34 trades in his NFL career as a general manager, and 20 of them he's traded down. So he likes to trade down. But will he trade down, or will he just stay there and pick? I think this is, a situation. Do they take Carter? I mean, I think with the quarterbacks talking about going as early as they're going, he's in a really good spot to get a good defensive player.
He's Michael Lombardi, former NFL general manager, 3-time Super Bowl winning NFL executive, the host of the GM Shuffle podcast at M Lombardi NFL on Twitter. Just a couple more minutes with you, Mike, because there's a lot of chatter over the last couple of days. And when I say chatter, you never really hear it coming out of Foxborough, out of New England. But with the Patriots right now scheduled to pick at 14, there's just been this talk of floating around that the relationship between the Patriots, Bill Belichick, Nick Caserio, who's with the Houston Texans, their general manager, that the Houston Texans are willing to do business at number 2. Could the Patriots possibly move up to go grab a quarterback, or do they stay pat with what they have already after drafting Bailey Zappi, who played last year, and now getting a real offensive coordinator for Mac Jones?
I can't see the Patriots. I mean, Bill Belichick rarely trades up in the first round. He did it with Dante Hightower. He did it with Chandler Jones, but that was at the bottom of the first. I can't see that. I think that's a really bad rumor.
Bad rumor. See, bad rumors. You hear that, Brockman? See that?
Thank goodness. Mike, are we going to do something fun? Like, what are we going to do, Mike? Come on, dude. Talk me off this ledge, because I'm worried Belichick's on the hot seat. He's coaching for his job. Kraft is unhappy. We have quarterback instability.
Guys, coaching. It's funny you say that. He's coaching for his job. He's won 6 Super Bowls. Ron Rivera hasn't had a winning season in 5 years yet. He's not coaching for his job. It's hilarious. I mean, it's really, the guy's had 6 Super Bowls. He's the greatest coach of all time, and he's coaching for his job. I mean, seriously, really?
I know, but 0 in the last 4 years, Mike. Come on, we're irrational. We're fans. You know how it goes.
I know we're fans, but I mean, when you lose a great quarterback, it's not easy, right? I mean, it's hard. You got to try to replenish it. I mean, they made the playoffs 2 years ago. I think they got to get Mac Jones back to the level player that he once was.
Yeah.
So is that wide receiver at 14? Is that Zay Flowers?
I mean, I love that. I love you. One thing about the draft, I think you should study the coaches, the movements of past performance, of the draft. Everybody wants to take a receiver, but Bill Walsh, I don't know if you remember Bill Walsh, but he was a pretty good coach himself, right? Yeah, and he said this all the time about receivers. You don't take receiver until it's the last position you need. He really was about defensive players because you can't hide defensive players. You got to have 11 good defensive players.
Oh.
Defensive back. So that's Joey Porter Jr. Mike, I need something.
Mike ain't giving nothing up. I love
don't know
it.
how to help you. I just giving you information. I mean, I think they'll be good. I think they'll make some good picks. Got a bunch of picks. I think this will be a first. What happens in the first round? They should be able to get a good starting player, whether it's an offensive lineman, maybe a defensive lineman, and then in the second round, you've got an opportunity to make some hay.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, we'll be watching all of your coverage over at the VSiN on Twitter Live at VSN Live. Also, the GM Shuffle podcast. Mike Lombardi, the former general manager, 3-time Super Bowl winning NFL executive, and the guy who allowed me to switch my number from 53 to 52. I appreciate you, Mike Lombardi. Thanks for the time, my man.
Kurt. Appreciate it. Thank you.
That's Mike Lombardi, man.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.